Good morning. Friday, the end of another working week. But for me it's a bit weird because I work at home and every day is pretty much like the other. Especially over the past year, it's been, crazy. Like that, because I haven't known what day it is a lot of the time unless I check my computer or phone or whatever. So, Friday. So Friday means I'm carrying on with this particular project that I've done, I think, 3 weeks now, where I've hand-lettered one of my favourite words, or a word that speaks to me at a particular time. This one is passion, the previous one was serendipity. And I'm drawing all kinds of lovely patterns and motifs around it to create, a beautifully, well, hopefully you'll agree with me, a beautifully decorated background. Do like it. So no further ado, let's get to it. Except I'm going to need my little book, because my little book is going to be a source of inspiration for some things, perhaps down here, or perhaps not. But I would imagine that today I'm going to finish drawing, and if I finish drawing quickly enough, finish drawing this quickly enough, then I think I'll scan it in, and then I'll dig out some pastel colours and start adding some colour to this. So I think pastels will work really well, because I can go pretty much monochrome with them and still spread things out. This particular paper is okay with pastels. It's Bristol board. So they will sort of like spread out on it, but they can be a bit patchy if I remember rightly. But, I shall see what happens and just basically take it from there, really. Because it's going to be, I suppose, showcasing a traditional kind of medium that I do like to use. And for this one I can and will credit the people at Zentangle, because during that time in the winter when I was doing comfort art, I was watching a lot of the Zentangle videos on YouTube for their project packs and the kitchen table tangles. And although I had pastel pencils in my stash, I had the Stabilo Carbothello ones, and I'd used some pastel pencils way back when I did A-level art, when I was a mere whippersnapper of about 40 years old or so. But I'd never really used them since. I think I tried and just got really frustrated with it because I just didn't know what to do. And so, like with everything with Zentangle, everything is simplified. And that is not a bad thing, by the way. Apparently it's a skill I have to make quite complex ideas understandable to people. And being able to do that as a teacher was an invaluable thing, So seeing people use them in this kind of way was an aha moment, and that became something I did quite a lot of in the sketchbook and with some other drawings I've done. And of course it's really fun when I do it on coloured paper. If I'm using coloured paper as a background, which I sometimes do. In fact, I've got some what's called toned paper coming eventually from an art company here in the UK, from the particular company that makes the paper called Fabriano. And I think I've got moss, sea blue or ocean blue, and clay, I think it is, or sand. I can't remember which. I think I got sand because clay is a grey, and, well, I don't know. Perhaps I got all four. I can't remember now, because it's not very, the company, it doesn't give a very quick time on delivery. And though it's all been dispatched, it's stuck in the mail system somewhere, I suspect, Royal Mail. So, who knows? So, it should arrive. So I would imagine that perhaps the next one of these I do will be on toned paper. And it may be that I'll focus on doing these over a number of days for my morning vlogging, drawing vlog. Morning warm-up drawing vlog. It's a mouthful. I've never been very good at being very succinct with words. I'm very wordy. Does anybody will know if they've ever had an email from me or conversations? I write in sentences that are a paragraph long. I'm not talking a short paragraph. When I did my PhD, and I had my Viva Voce, which is your oral exam where you have to well, I thought I was going to be asked lots of questions about the work I'd done and to explain my research or whatever. I spent an hour or 2 hours, hour and a half, something like that, with the external examiner going through my thesis and asking me to alter bits of grammar, but also to put full stops in places and start a new sentence, because I'd just written everything all in without stopping to think this is a new sentence. So that's going back. I think in America it's called defending your thesis. I don't know if it is over here in some universities, but for me it was a Viva Voce. And at the end of it, I was feeling really quite disheartened, because there was all of this criticism on my writing style, and quite rightly so, because I could see what they meant. I understood this, perhaps, even though I hadn't really been aware of it before then. But I hadn't been asked any questions about my research or any questions about the results, methodology, what I discovered, anything like that. And I was very confused, because friends of mine who'd already gone through their Vivas, shared an office with, had been grilled for hours on their research and their results, their methodology and their knowledge of the science and things like that. And I wasn't being grilled at all. So they asked me, they said, right, have you got anything to ask us? And I looked and I said, well, you haven't asked me any questions about my thesis. It's been all grammatical errors and things. Does this mean I'm going to fail? And the answer came back is no, you've passed. We do, as long as you do the corrections I've suggested and get it back in, you will receive your PhD. We don't need to ask you any questions, because everything is very plain and clear in your thesis. And there's nothing I need to ask you. You don't need to explain or make anything clearer. And that was a bit of a shock, considering that I'd just been asked to break my paragraphs into more than one sentence, or 2 sentences in rare occasion. And perhaps not all the paragraphs, but there were a fair number. And I said, really? And they said, yes, really. But all these corrections, yes, they're just grammar. There's nothing wrong with your science. And it took me a while for that to sink in. As in, quite a few minutes, I sat there in stunned silence. And there was a round of congratulations and handshakes and things like that. And I went home, sort of like quite elated, because, it had really sunk in. And people in the office in the department, I did mine in I did my research in the chemical engineering department of what's now the University of South Wales, then was the Polytechnic of Wales. And they'd waited to find out what had happened, because obviously they got to know me over the 3 years I'd been doing my research. And congratulations, and everything sort of sunk in, and I had a cup of tea to calm my nerves and things like that. And when I got home, I was all really happy and excited to share my news with my long ago ex, and thought we might go out, perhaps for a meal or for a drink or whatever, just to celebrate. And we didn't, because he suddenly developed a migraine and had to go to bed. And so I cried, because he didn't want to celebrate my success with me. He didn't acknowledge the success. He just went, oh, well, there we are then. You can go and earn some money now, was his attitude. It's not that I didn't have an income while I was being a student. I did. It just wasn't enough to satisfy him, I guess. And so I cried, and then I sat on the floor with all the copies of my thesis, with some Tipp-Ex, also known as whiteout, and a black pen. So I didn't have to reprint my thesis. They told me this, because it had been professionally bound, because those were the rules, and the expense and so on. But, so as long as I corrected it neatly and legibly, that was fine, which is what I did. And eventually resurfaced from the bedroom about 10 o'clock at night, saying he was feeling a bit better, and would I go and get a takeaway, a Chinese takeaway. And again, there was no congratulations, no well done, nothing. And that, even now I can think about it, and I don't think of it with sadness particularly. I just think, why did it take me so long to realise that this was not the right person for me in life? But I think I just accepted it as being part and parcel of what life was like for me, because successes, birthdays were things that were never celebrated for me in the family home or anywhere really. So I just accepted this as normal. Funny, isn't it, how, come to this by talking about pastels and colouring and like simplifying things, and story about me and my PhD. I had an absolutely fantastic time doing my PhD. I had the most amazing supervisors who weren't overly controlling like some of my fellow research students' supervisors were. And I think I had an absolute dream of a time doing a PhD compared to so many others. And I feel very lucky about that. But also it meant that I found it very hard to believe that I'd actually worked hard for success, because I'd seen the struggle they had, and I seemed to get it so quickly and so easily. Everything I did just seemed to work. And so, I've had something that is described as Imposter Syndrome for a long, long time about this, and not really valued everything myself. It's all part of looking to other people for external validation of your successes or achievements. And I can say no, I'm really proud that I managed to do that I worked my way through it all. But this imposter syndrome still crops up in my life. It's the same with colouring books and art. It's sometimes I think I'm playing at this. This isn't really, it's not true. It's not real. I'm not really like this. But it, I do it, and I enjoy creating art. And I think that's what holds me back from being more proactive in either selling my art or promoting myself in some way, or my art in some way. Selling my art even, or being more active with things like Etsy or Redbubble. Redbubble's better because for some things, because I find it incredibly hard to part with my art. And on red, and also if I was to do so, some of my traditional art takes such a long amount of time that it would be really expensive for people to buy generally. Yeah. And I don't want that to be the case, really. Colouring books are fab for that. I mean, the people who've shared in my arts through the colouring books is enormous. And I'm aware of this, and I'm aware that there's a lot of people who really like them. Perhaps, as well as others, sometimes in preference to others, perhaps exclusively, I do not know for sure. But I'm always very humbled by this, because they see what I do in a different way to how I see things. But I like the idea of building up my Redbubble shop or something similar, so that my art is on products that are affordable, that everybody who wants, or just about everybody who wants it, it's accessible to them in a way that perhaps original art wouldn't be. And it says something about taste and style and aesthetics. And I like that idea of making art more accessible to people, of having things that aren't just for those who can afford hundreds or thousands or even millions of pounds. I mean, my art isn't a social commentary, really. Sometimes I think I'd like to do that, is to do something that is perhaps a social commentary, or a commentary on my life, or, funny things, funny sayings, and, I don't know, quotes, who knows. But it never seems to quite work for me that way, and I don't think I have necessarily the right to do such things. I've got my own very strong opinions when it comes to politics and to lots of things, but I do my best to keep it out of social media or anything to do with my art and business, because everybody's got their right to their own opinions there. And I don't think my art is meant to be about such things, perhaps. No doubt if I found a cause that really spoke to me and that I felt I would be happy to generate art related to it, and that it would be something that would make sense to people, perhaps, or I don't know, perhaps I would, I don't know. But mostly I create art simply because I can, because I think it's something pretty, it's something nice, it's something I like to look at, or I enjoy making, and it seems to be things that people really enjoy adding colour to and bringing to life, and allowing themselves to create a bit of beauty, a bit of prettiness in life. And I think that's what I do. I think main focus of my art isn't to make any kinds of statements or to have any hidden meanings or agendas or make you feel uncomfortable or whatever it is. And don't get me wrong, I love artists who can do that. I love Banksy, for example, for his graffiti, I suppose, his art that he does, his guerrilla art, that has a wonderful social commentary on it. And I think it's great when other artists do things that've got something to say, of meaning. But I don't really have that in some ways, or perhaps I do, perhaps just adding a bit of beauty to the world in my own way, something that people can perhaps relate to, that they can just enjoy for what it is, for no other reason than because it's there, it exists, it is what it is. And you like it, you like it. If you don't like it, well, you don't like it. And I'm not going to get upset if you don't. That's fine by me, because everybody's tastes are different. You know, it's sort of like some people love strong coffee, others don't like coffee, others like a medium strength. Mine is so weak it just faintly colours hot milky water. So, or I make a mocha out of it. I have chocolate with a hint of coffee, mix of coffee in it. So it's okay, I like the taste or the flavour of coffee. I just don't want it in my overpowering. But yeah. So, how do we get on to this? I tell you what, it certainly is. Yeah, mind works. So yeah, so to go back, Zentangle, the people at Zentangle, Mick and Maria Thomas and the others, have come up with a brilliant way to help people become confident in drawing. And drawing, breaking down those barriers that drawing has to be like photographic or representational of something. And it's about drawing patterns and putting them together in an interesting way or a nice way, either whether it's geometrically symmetrical, asymmetrical, whatever. But also with the directions of drawing for these particular patterns and motifs is supplying or creating what they call a deconstruction of that pattern. So a step-by-step guide to how you draw it, or a step out for it. And as long as you follow these, then you're likely to end up with a pattern that looks like the step out. But you're equally as likely to perhaps not follow it quite exactly and discover a new pattern, one that perhaps you like more. And that's fine too, because it happens. There are patterns that I've tried to follow the deconstructions for, and I've got very confused about what I'm doing and where I'm going, because nothing is making sense on the page. And then I end up with something completely different, which I actually quite like. And I try to remember how I actually made it for future reference. In my little brown book that I'm leaning on here, my visual dictionary, my little brown book, a little black book or a little red book, that's just tickled me this morning. I've got some step outs or patterns in there, ones I really, really like and perhaps struggle with, where I've taken the time to do it in my own way. The step out, the set of instructions for drawing it, where it makes sense to me and may not necessarily make sense to other people, and that is fine. And it was nice to hear them when I was watching the videos talking about happy accidents. There's no such thing as an accident or a mistake, you just work with it. And if you draw over a line, you can see the line through the pattern. Well, it's there. And surprisingly, things like pencil lines or other lines that you may become absorbed into the pattern, they're not really noticeable afterwards, because they never use erasers either. Never use correction fluids of any kind. It's part of the Zentangle method. So, if you think you can't draw, I'd recommend you having a look at that. I've certainly learnt some things. I think the concept of an elegance of limits was something I first heard there. I've since seen it in other places. It's funny how you suddenly notice things when you become aware of them. And you think, oh, everybody's talking about that now. But you look at the video or whatever I was looking at, and it goes back years, It's just having that awareness. Morning mocha. And It's what Bob Ross, I think, called happy little accidents. And I've also heard described as creative opportunities. Because you work with, especially when I work with pen, I can correct my pen. You know, if I scan it in digitally and to work on it with colour digitally, then I will clean lines and smudges and things like that up, because I have the, I'm able to. And if I'm going to offer it as a product of any kind, whether my drawings are for the next colouring book, whether they're for Redbubble or some other reason, then I think I need to polish things up as much as I can. And especially if I've used pencil to draw guidelines or, shapes or layout, like I did for the template yesterday. If you watched yesterday's video, this week's colouring template, then I can erase them out, but sometimes traces remain in the scan. You can still see them. And so I will, use digital wizardry to clean the image up, as well as any smudges or where lines have spilled over one to another badly. But some of them I leave because it shows that a human has created this. I love working digitally, and when I do digital drawings, I do tend to work really hard to set brushes up for drawing that will mimic the lines I get when I draw with pen on paper. I haven't managed it perfectly, but I've managed to get close. So I get all these imperfections and slight wibbles and wobbles and so on, because I like that human touch, that human feel. I admire people who have work that is so perfect digitally. It's their expression of themselves in that kind of way. So I'm sort of like contradicting myself here, but it's their style, it's their aesthetic. This is my aesthetic. It's hand-drawn. It's meant to look imperfect. I don't want my work to be completely perfect, because I want it to be good enough. And perhaps I'm overly harsh with my criticisms of myself in some ways, but this is me, this is who I am, and I've got a particular style, I think, that is recognisable. People tell me that they can look at work and they could see similar work and they know whether it's mine or not. I certainly can do that. I see people that do very similar kinds of art to me, but you can tell whose it is. If you get to know the particular artist, they have their own way of drawing things, their own way of creating lines, of putting things together. And that is a wonderful thing. It's your own signature style, I suppose. So I'm just putting some hearts down here because I've got a lonely heart at the top, and I really don't want a lonely heart in my drawing. So a couple down there. And I think that's it. I think there's this gap over here, this space over here is bothering me just a tad, so I'm going to add a spiral there. I am, because I can, because it warrants it really, and that makes it, that's better. That looks a bit, neater there. So I've started to spill out down at the bottom, and I'm fine with that. It's like the picture's trying to take hold, take roots. So that's Passion done. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop the video for a moment, and you won't notice, because it'll be like I've not gone anywhere. Honestly, as I fiddle with this to try and get it level. Oh, made it worse. I'm going to scan it in. I'm going to go and look for the colours of pastel pencils that I want to use and find some of these paper stumps or tortillons to blend the pastel out. And I'll spend a bit of time doing that before I call today's video done. But that's the drawing. Passion. It's actually quite bold with all the black, and it looks fairly balanced. It's not symmetrical by any long, stretch of the imagination, but I've used just a small number of motifs or patterns in there. I mean, I've got 2 different kinds of roses, 2 different kinds of leaves. I've got these seed pods, I've got those there, these hearts. So there's about, what is there, about 7, 8 perhaps? But I've tried to keep it, to a fairly small number so that it's not overly confusing or overwhelming, that there is that sense of continuity. So I'll go and do the scan, find those pencils, and I'll be back in a tick. So there we are, I'm back. Didn't take as long as I thought. I've got my tin of Carbothellos there just in case I decide on other colours. But I've picked these particular ones here. They don't have any names on, they're just there. I've got these 2 greens at the top. The next 3 greens I've put to one side. I've got this particular yellow. I've got a kind of orangey colour and a burgundy-ish colour. And I quite like the combinations of these. One of these greens is more of a bluey green, and the other one's it's got more yellow in it, but they still remind me of evergreen leaves and perhaps of rose, the leaves on roses and so on. Things may change because I may need a different colour for different things, but I'm going to do just some of this. I've scanned it in, so if I mess this up, I've got a really high quality resolution image of this, and I'm going to start with the letters. I want to make these darker at the bottom, so I'm going to put some pastel bottom of each letter, and also there on the S's. It doesn't matter if I don't get them into the exact place. And the other thing about these pastels is that if I do go outside the line and it bothers me, because it can do, I've got a Tombow mono eraser that I can use to take most of it off. This is a paper tortillon, which is, it's just paper all spiralled up into a point. It's hollow, but it's all glued together, so it's really sturdy. This is a paper stump. It's made out of compressed paper. Get them in different sizes. Even these you can get in different sizes, but these are ones I got out of one of my pencil storage boxes just now, and I've got a number of them because you can clean them up, and that's what this tool is here for. It's a piece of hardboard that's got lots of sheets of sandpaper on there, and you rub the tip against the sandpaper to clean off the coloured bits, so you refresh your tip. And I've got enough here that hopefully I won't need to do that, but I may just forget. You can see that just with fairly light pressure this spreads out, and with the tip of this tortillon being so fine, it means that you can pretty much control where it goes, colour, and by doing it a little at a time you really can get a lovely gradation of colour. It goes from darker to lighter. And that is really quite nice, I think. Works nicely. And of course I chose red because red is the colour associated with passion. And of course, not just romantic passion. It's the passion of feelings. And romantic feelings are just one of a whole slew of feelings that we have. And I think passion indicates the strength of feeling that we have. See, I've smudged that one there. But no worries, because I can remedy that. This is one of the problems of working with chalk pastels, is that they do smudge easily. By using a paper tortillon, you persuade them to go further into the fibres of the paper so they don't smudge as much. That smudge came because I brushed my hand over an area that I hadn't done this to. It doesn't mean that it's perfect, that things won't smudge, it just means they won't smudge as badly. But so, there's ways of fixing that, and the easiest one is with an eraser. I'd often use one of the kneadable erasers, but I think I've run out and I need to order some, or I've got them stashed away in a place I haven't remembered where they are, and that often happens. So I tend to give myself time, especially if I've got options. And the options for this is one of the Tombow monos, because they are so fine. You can hear me furting through my... Oh, there it is, right in front of me. They've got a really fine eraser in them, so I can just tidy that little bit up there. The idea is to persuade these so they don't need to, can't smudge them. So if I go like that, there's no smudging now because I've used the chalk and I've embedded it. The other lovely thing about these carbothellos is they are slightly water soluble. So if you use, I wouldn't use it on this paper because Bristol board and water, not the best. It tends to pill very quickly. It's not designed to take water. But on mixed media paper or sketchbook paper I've got that's designed for mixed media, it's really quite nice to do. And the water will move the soluble colour out in a slightly different way. So that is, you know, something that is really nice to do. Let's have a look. I'm going to put yellow here. The other problem I find with pastels is that if you get them over your line, it tends to dull the line a bit. But if that's really bothersome, I mean, it's more so with the lighter shades and colours like yellow, then you can always go over that one's for the red, that's a clean one for the yellow. I'm using clean ones because if I want to blend colours together, I'll do it deliberately, and perhaps I'll clean the tortillon afterwards. With this as well, you can pick up some of the pigment from the pen, but you know, it's one of those things where you go, oh well, it is what it is. It's a happy accident, you know, and in the grand scheme of things, unless somebody's looking that closely at it with a magnifying glass and looking for problems, nobody would notice otherwise. So I've got a bit this year. I'm going to put some more in the middle of this long edge, because otherwise there's just way too much white there. I was considering putting green here. Yeah, but to go back to passion, you know, it's the words that is, I'm just going to blow it off, that's most associated with love. But you can be passionate about many things. You can be passionate about things you love. People can get very passionate about things they feel very angry towards, or that they don't agree with in some kind of way. And we all have these passions, and one of my main passions is art, and I make no bones about that. I don't, you know, try to pretend otherwise. I create art every day, just about. There may be the odd days where I miss, where I just haven't got the inspiration, or I'm just not feeling well enough for whatever reason to do any. But art is one of my big passions in life. Other passions, learning. I love to learn. I'm curious. I don't read as much as I used to because of the problems I have after breakdown, burnout, whatever, when I crashed and burned a number of years ago. But I'm gradually getting there, so there's that. Music I love. I spoiled myself yesterday. I really did. I've been intrigued with hang drums or hand pans, hand drums, hand pans, hand things, which make the most lovely bell-like tones. And they've been cropping up so much in my YouTube feed, for example, that yes, over the last couple of days at least, I've been listening to the music, which I find beautiful, particularly the ones that are designed for relaxation and meditation and so on Spotify as well. And I was actually working yesterday afternoon on adding colour to one of my drawings of this week digitally, and I used my stand-up desk converter platform, so I could stand up while I did it, which is I'm not at the moment because standing and drawing digitally is great, but drawing traditionally it's not so easy because I haven't got the space up there with the computer and everything else on there. But it just means that I might have to think about where I store things and keep things. Anyway, so I thought I'll have a look around. Now, the actual hang pans that are made, I think, in Switzerland, and there's at least an 18-month waiting list, are incredibly expensive because they're custom made for each person. And from what I remember reading about them a long time ago, that the makers, I don't know if they ask you for information and make decisions based on that, but they kind of work intuitively as to what would be the right kind of thing for the purchaser. And so they create you a really unique hand pan, or hang drum as they're called. Well, I'm not entirely sure I'll want to part with that kind of money. We're looking at least, I think it's £1,800 at least, the last time I looked. And because I need to know that it's what I really want. Having said that, I spent that much money on an electric harp many years ago, and I still don't play it very often. In fact, I haven't played it for a number of years, and it's something I need to do, and I need to get it out of its case and tune it and sit there and play with it. So I had to hunt around yesterday, and I know I like the deeper tones, so I wanted a larger sized one if I was going to buy one. And I found one on Amazon. Yeah, guilty as anything going to Amazon yet again for stuff that I could buy elsewhere, perhaps. But it's not huge, it's 13 inches in diameter, and it's got 13 different notes on it, which means there's a good range there. And it's arriving later today, hopefully, or arriving sometime today. So I'm looking forward to playing with that and seeing how I get on. I do this from time to time where I look at it and I think, well, if I don't want it, if it doesn't work out for me, I can always sell it. I've got a guitar here that I did that with. Still haven't sold it, can't play guitar, but perhaps one day I'll try again, because it may be to do with the angle that I've been holding the guitar out of my wrist and my fingers. My fingers aren't long enough in that particular way, so I'll see, perhaps I will, but yeah, so I'm quite excited about that, and it may encourage me to spend more time practicing flute. getting the harp out, spending more time with music and doing things that are perhaps away from the sketchbook and paper and digital art a bit more, because I have spent an awful lot of time doing this over the past, well, I do anyway, but more so over the past year, because there's not been options of doing other things other than going out for a walk once a day for much of the time. And even when restrictions were lifted last summer, I still didn't want to go out anywhere because I was really quite scared of getting the virus, even though I may have already had it. Long story. So, yeah. So that could be interesting. So hopefully that'll become another passion. And I like the idea that you can either play music that you've written or somebody else has written, or traditional songs, whatever on it, or you can just use it to make sounds and rhythms that are pleasing to yourself for no other reason. And I think that with something like a flute or the harp, that's not quite so easy for me to do, and definitely wouldn't be with a guitar. But perhaps this will be that one, because, well, we'll see. So, not that I'm going to be recording myself and sharing it on YouTube ever, or on social media, but I no doubt I will let you know how I get on with it. It's got the same feeling almost that I had when I bought my flute, and the harp, oddly. But I got out of the habit of playing and practicing both of those things when I had my burnout and breakdown. And it's actually quite difficult for me to get back into the habit in many ways. I forget I can do it, that's the thing, it's that I forget I've got these as an option. Or I get so engrossed in doing something else, I forget that I could have done them, and by the time I realise that I could do these things, it's often too late in the day because I don't want to disturb my neighbours. You know, if I suddenly realise at 10 o'clock at night, oh gosh, I haven't played my flute today, I really want to play my flute. Oh, neighbour's home, I'm not sure they'll enjoy that. The walls are pretty thick here, but at night time, it's just not going to happen. I'm just very much conscious of that, because it's something that I wouldn't appreciate. I did have neighbours on one side for a while who would quite regularly, it was mother and son, and there'd be quite regularly themselves and others there, and the noise at night, and it used to go on to 2, 3, 4 in the morning. It was a lot, broken night's sleep. And then on the other side I had someone who had a piano, and I'd be woken up in the wee small hours by her and a lot of other people gathering around the piano playing traditional Welsh songs and singing rather raucously, and that wasn't, it's not something that I really wanted to experience, to have at those kinds of hours. Daytime, not a problem. So, I didn't say anything because it wasn't often, but it was often enough that it became an annoyance when it became fairly regular. And I'm not the kind of person to make a complaint. But that's years ago. And now I've got a neighbour on one side who is reclusive. If I go out my door and she's just heading out the door, she scuttles back in, and you can see her peering through cracks. I've tried to speak to her from time to time and she just doesn't respond. She just I think she got angry with me once because I'd had the hedge trimmed and some of the leaves had gone on her step, and she came out and she got really angry because I was cleaning up, and she just cleaned up, and so, the hedge has got to be trimmed, and she really doesn't like it when it's done. So it's hedge trimming time more or less now again, and need to find somebody who can do that for me. And I don't do things like that. I'd make a right pig's ear of it. And the people I have been using, I've realised, are charging me an absolute fortune for it, because I don't haggle easily. Or rather I do, but I give in way too quickly, and I really don't want to use them anymore, and telling them no, I don't want to see you again is not something I find easy to do. I still have issues with things. I'm paying for this, you know, don't come here. First time they came, it was actually, they knocked on the door about, you know, have you got the head, you know, in the area doing some work, one of those. And because I paid them, because I didn't realise any better, I was not in a very good place, they keep coming back. And they'll just knock on the door. I've got their phone number. If I want to use them, I can phone them. But they don't. They come, they knock on my door. Even to the point where they lift the letterbox up and shout in at my name. Because I'm in. I don't want to answer the door. I don't see why I should, just because somebody knocks on the door if I don't want to speak to them. But they're persistent. They'll go away and they'll come back again. And they don't take no for an answer. And that's very uncomfortable for me. So I do what my neighbour does, and I hide from them. So, which is almost infantile and childish, but you know, it's in some ways, but in other ways it is protecting myself. And you know, they know I'm likely to be in because my car's out there, but they don't know for sure. And I could be ill. And they just persist, and it's just that lack of awareness or consideration. If somebody doesn't answer the door, just go away. I'm ranting now, but yeah. So, passions. So we all have them, whatever they may be. And I need to sharpen this. These will sharpen in an ordinary pencil sharpener. So I've got my little roundy one, and when you put them in, it's a little machiny thing, it's hand one, and we get a fairly nice not point on it, because it will break, because pastel is a lot softer than usual colouring pencils, so you don't want to use too much of pressure, because the tip will break, and it does break quite easily. Yeah, I'm not really thinking about what I'm saying. I just realised that the tip will break quite easily. Yeah, repeating myself. But because they're so soft, even with a light touch, you get a lot of pigment, the chalk down. This one I'm thinking about where I want it to go, where the leaves would perhaps naturally be darker. So up towards the veins and the base of the leaf where there's a shadow. So I want most of it. Let's just go around all of these leaves, and then I'll blend them in all in one go. So I'm not very assertive with people. Still, I am learning I can say no, and I am known to say no to people at times. And but it's not easy, because I don't want to hurt and offend people. Again, it's something from learned behaviour in childhood. Never say no to people, because if you do, they get really, really nasty. That was my experience, and I still have problems, you know, being able to say no. But so I'm getting better, I'm learning. And perhaps I'm finding ways to say, well, I'm not up to saying no to somebody, but I've got strategies that mean that I perhaps they'll eventually get the message. Or I can avoid saying it for long enough that they will get the message that, no, go away, I don't want to speak to you. And for years, I've not, if the phone rings and I don't want to speak, I won't. Because I think, well, if it's somebody who really needs something from me, they'll leave a message. I'm not up to speaking to anybody, I'm not in the right space. Yeah. Just because somebody phones doesn't mean I have to answer the phone. And with all these blasted cold calls, it's really annoying because they're now beginning to use numbers that look like mobile phone numbers. And as most people who call me from a mobile phone, and this is on my mobile phone, don't get it so much on my home phone. It seems that the companies that regulate home phones have done a pretty good job of setting things up so you can block unwanted calls, which I certainly have signed up for that. But mobile phones, it's not the case, and several times a week I'll have somebody asking me, oh, we're not selling you something, but it's just a survey, have you got time to answer a quick 3 questions? But they've told you that they're from some energy company, and you know that the questions are just to get you talking to them, and then they'll try to sell you some kind of other product. And in the past, I'm not keen on people doing this. If I want to change energy company, I'm quite capable of making those decisions myself. And I know when the time is right and when I want to do it, and I will do it. But with companies like this, I've used them in the past, I've been persuaded in the past because I find it hard to say no to people, that I've done it, and I've had some absolute nightmares with it, with energy and other things. And I might save myself a few pounds a year by switching energy companies, but the hassle isn't worth the savings. And then when I found I'd been overcharged, and I've continued to be charged even though I've cancelled the request within the 14 days, it's taken me a year or more to get my money back. And the last time it wasn't a small amount of money, it was over £700, it was nearly £800. And they did not want to give it back to me, even though they have it on their records. I had it in my records because I keep a record of all such things, that I no longer wanted to take up the offer. I wanted to cancel it and remain with the energy company I was with. And the energy company I was with had records of all of that as well. And it took me 3 or 4 attempts to get my money back. And I'm very wary now of doing that. It's more hassle than the money's worth. I mean, that £700 was a lot more than the few a pound or two a month I would have saved. It would have taken me many years to save that kind of money. I'm not entirely sure about these colours. I really am not. They look brighter on the camera than they are on in front of me, but I'm really not sure. Which is why I scan things in. But yeah. And this is a really good example of why I rarely ever use traditional media. Because if I mess up, I'd have to redo this. And as much as I love colour, my ability to choose colours and use them in terms of traditional media is not wonderful. And part of me wishes I'd just done this all monochrome. I really do. I am well disappointed in myself, I think. Yeah. And I don't think any amount of addition of colour is going to make this any better. So yet another one on the computer to be either colour added digitally or shadow and light. Shadows bring out layers perhaps, or motifs. This is just not working. But, you know, I may persevere with it perhaps in the coming days. I've had enough of it for now, it's irritating me. And when it irritates me, it's time to stop. You may disagree with me on that, but I'm not happy. These look quite nice up here, much nicer than they do on the paper, the orange and red. I thought would look nice together, but it turns out they don't particularly, or don't suit my aesthetics. And I'm just not happy. But instead I've scanned it in, so I can do stuff scanned in. Yeah. That's my best option. So, but I thought I'd give it a go, and perhaps then you can see why I prefer working digitally, because I can really hone down colours. If I make a right pig's ear of something, then I can, I'm just tidying up as I finish here, I can start all over or adjust and, you know, work with it. Here, there's nothing I can do about this. I can't even erase it completely and start again, because these aren't, you know, you'll always have traces where they've been pushed into the paper. But, you know, it is what it is. It's a lesson to be learned by me. And every now and again I try things and I go, oh, what on earth were you thinking, Angela? Yeah, I do. I keep trying in the hope that things will change. But was it Einstein that said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome? This is an example of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome. And just embeds that idea that it's pen drawing on paper, brilliant. Drawing on coloured paper and using dark, you know, black or a very dark colour of that paper. So if I was drawing on blue paper, using a very dark blue and then white and blending them for a highlight, that works, having that background colour. And working very monochrome, just to bring out shadow and highlight and that sense of volume. But using colour from traditional media, I don't know why it doesn't work for me. It just doesn't. It's just one of those things. So my passion is for drawing with pen on paper. Another passion is for adding colour digitally, especially when I've got a coloured background and I'm adding shadow and highlight. And or very, very limited colour palette where I know exactly what the colours are and how to blend them and so on. It's learning, and my passion is for learning as well. But every now and again I have to do something like this to remind me that, Angela, let's not go there again for a while, is it? But I thought I'd show, because I know that people can do amazing things with colour. I certainly know the people who work in my colouring books do. I see everything I see is fantastic and so unique in the way that people approach it. And perhaps now you'll see why I choose to do colour digitally for the vast majority of time. But you know, it's time for me to end today's vlog. It's time for me to have breakfast. It's nearly 10 o'clock in the morning. I was late waking up, a bit headachy as a result. It's not raining today. So yesterday it started raining again, so I did not go out for a walk. Today I definitely do want to. And because I know I'll feel better for it. And I'm going to put this to one side in the sort of like, not failure, but it'll go into a sketchbook or a folder of some kind with a note on it that says, don't do colour. But just thank you for spending time with me, for seeing through here, seeing that we all mess up and it's not a problem. After all, it's only paper and pen. And if I hadn't scanned it in, it would have been only paper and pen, and it's a learning exercise, and I'd annotate this, and I may still do that with a note to myself. It's, Angela, don't. Just don't do this. And yeah, so thanks for being with me. If you've enjoyed the video, please think about clicking the like button. And it'd be really wonderful if you'd consider and actually click the subscribe button. Not out for fame and fortune, but it just gives me that little bit of an impetus to say, yeah, I'm doing something that people are quite enjoying, that I'm not speaking to myself entirely, or, you know, doing it for no reason. 'Cause I actually need to speak out and speak my thoughts to be aware of them. So it's really helping me, and I need a purpose to do it. So it's really important. But for all who've subscribed, all who've liked my videos, thank you ever so much. And for those who've left comments, thank you. They really are very much appreciated. And no doubt some of you will say, there's nothing wrong with this. You may think so. But for me, I'm going, oh, what was I thinking? So, yeah, it's colour. Yeah. So, whatever you do for the rest of your day, or until you come and visit again, take care of yourselves, find what you're passionate about, and find a way to build it into your daily life, to give yourself that sense of joy and a place to just let go of things for just a short time. Yeah, take care. Bye-bye.